I made a video on this subject and I'm noticing that it has 20,000 views or more, and so obviously there's an interest in it. And I got a comment today that said that I was talking over their head, so I'm going to try to back this up a little bit and make it a little more basic on which sander to buy, and to know a little bit about when you're looking at sanders, to try and figure out which one to use and which one to buy. Because there's a lot of options. There's a lot of cheap sanders, and you see one of those really cheap sanders, and it's really tempting. You go, man, look at that one's only like 25 bucks or 35 bucks or something, and is it any good? So let's talk about this a little bit. So for many years, I got by with using this style sander, and I think mine was a Chicago pneumatic, and this is a fake one, and it was okay. And we used something called PSA sanding discs, which are basically ones with the glue-on stick back that are smooth. And then now we use the Velcro type setup. In the Velcro, the thing I like about the Velcro is not, people say, oh, well, you can change back and forth to the papers you want. That's a nice convenient thing, but the actual reason I like it is because if I'm standing next to the edge of something, it doesn't want to peel up like this does and fold over and stuff like that. So that's why I switched to the Velcro system. And the sandpaper is a little bit more money, but I don't really think it's really any difference as far as the cost. I don't think it really is that much more. So let's talk about sanders though, and that's the main reason I want to make this video. Is there's a lot of different options. There's cheap sanders, there's expensive sanders, and what I'm going to try to explain to you is the difference. Is compressor usage is measured in cubic feet per minute, so it's called CFM. So when you're looking at sanders used or new, you want to look at the amount of CFM that the sander uses. Now, a lot of companies are liars about their CFM usage, so you got to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. So a lot of times I've had like AirCat, for instance, they say that this sander runs on 3 CFM or something like that. There's maybe at like 12 RPMs it runs at 3 CFM. There's almost, the amount of air usage that sander has is quite a bit more than what they rated at. Even the Hutchins uses quite a bit more air than what they rated at, I think 15 CFM, and it's probably uses about 17 in my opinion. That's what I'm finding from using it. And this one here is an air hog too, a little bit. I mean, it's really not that much of an air hog as much as it is at least the cheap Harbor Freight one. This is the Harbor Freight version of the Chicago pneumatic sander. And I don't remember, I think my Chicago pneumatic used a lot less air than that one does. So that's probably in the 17-ish area too. Now, if you are looking for really good air usage, and I don't know about Dynabride, because Dynabride took over the company that makes this sander right here. This is a real DAQ by National Detroit. So Detroit National, I think that's what it says on here. And they're made in Illinois. But that's when it was made. Now this sander here, the actual DAQ, the real one, and the one right next to it is not the real one, but we can talk about the real one for a second. The real DAQ sander, that's the name of it. It's not just some technical term. The name of the sander is DAQ by National Detroit. That one actually rated at 10 CFM, and I swear it's definitely 10 CFM sander. I think that the AirCat actually uses more air than this one does. So, I know that for sure. The AirCat uses more sander, and the AirCat's supposed to be a really, really low air usage, and it's pretty good, but it's not near what they rated at, which is 3 CFM, 3 cubic feet per minute. So When you go to look for a sander, and if you have a smaller compressor, really, if you're going to do any sanding, you really need 5 horsepower, 60-gallon compressor to do any long-term sanding. If you're going to sand for like a minute or two, you can use a smaller one. But you need that 15, 17 CFM or more. Some of the 5 horsepowers now are up to like 20. I think I saw one that was 26 CFM at 5 horsepower. So some of the new compressors are rated much higher, but then again, they're rated that. So are they really putting it out? I don't know. Is mine really putting it out? I don't really know. I don't have a really good way to test it after when you've been running it for a long period of time. So the thing I'll tell you about each one of these sanders, this one here, the Harbor Freight one, doesn't last very long. This one here is like $300. It lasts for frickin' ever. You'll never wear one of these out. I don't think anybody I know has ever worn one out. And if you do, you can buy all the parts to replace it and rebuild it. This thing is a fake one of these. It uses about 17 to 20 CFM, probably more like 20. And, they don't last that long either if you have enough compressor to even run it, which I don't, so I don't use it. I could use this sander for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then it's not out of air, but it just doesn't have enough power to do its job as well as, like this one here is always good. The Hutchins, this sander is like 300. This actual sander is one of their like industrial line sanders, and it runs it'll run all day. Oh, it'll run it's probably running at about 15 CFM. So my compressor keeps up with it pretty well, but after maybe half an hour, I start to catch up. I'll tell you where I find that I can get it to work. If I run my compressor and I burn it up, I run it for a little while, okay, and same thing with the AirCat. If I run the compressor for a while and I run the air sander for a little while until the compressor kicks on, then I wait about 2 to 5 minutes, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then I'll let the compressor kind of catch up, and it'll be up at a higher pressure, and then I'll start using it again. Then I can pretty much go all day long using it. So it's not outrunning my compressor, which is I think 17 CFM, and same with this. And then I can just go all day, and that's what I used to do many years ago with this sander. So a couple of more things I wanted to say about buying one. So this sander was again $100 for AirCat, which is a great sander for the money. I really like the sander. The thing about it I like is it's very, very quiet. Okay, and so is this sander. It's really pretty quiet. This sander is pretty noisy. The DAQ, this thing's loud too. But when you're looking at a sander, look at the CFM usage. Consider that when you consider price, and kind of look at those types of things when you're looking at buying one. And the other thing, there was one other thing I was going to think about. Let me think about it for a second. Well, one other thing I was going to say is I think Dynabride took over this company, and I don't know what the difference. I haven't got a Dynabride sander, but I heard they're really good. So I don't really know. I don't have a way to test and compare. Okay, there's actually one other really important thing that I was thinking of and I couldn't remember it when I started the video, is what there is a oscillation size. So this sander here, I can't remember the oscillation size of this one. I think this one is a 3/16 oscillation. So what it does is 3/16 of an inch, it oscillates around, okay? And this one here is 3/16. It oscillates 3/16 around, okay? So 3/16 of an inch, it moves in a circle, okay? And they call it oscillation, but it's actually a circular motion, and this thing is turning in a circular motion, so it oscillates. Okay, so this one here is, I believe, if I don't remember the specs exactly right, I think this one's 3/8 or maybe it's even 7/16, and I believe that this one is a 3/8 or 7/16 oscillation. So if you're sanding something, you want to sand really aggressive. So why do I have 4 sanders? A couple of reasons. Sometimes I need a 5-inch, so I don't want to switch them back and forth. Sometimes I need a 6-inch. Okay, this sander I hardly use. I don't really use. Sometimes I just have PSA. So if I have a PSA sheet, I got given some PSA sheets and I wanted to burn them up, so I was using that sander just to burn up my PSA sheets. So, but I have all these different sanders for different reasons. This one here is very, very aggressive, but it's really hard to hold. So when you're sanding, like for instance, plastic filler, you might want to use this at first and just knock it down. And then when you get to the finer process, then you're going to use one of these two. Okay, so I like this one because it's a little bit quieter. It has a little bit more power than even the what's it called, the Hutchins. So, and the Hutchins is kind of heavy, and this is a little lighter weight. And when you get older, you want a lighter weight tool. So, but when you look at when you're looking for a sander to buy, you definitely want to look at the oscillation, and you might want to have 2 different sanders. You might want to have one that's a really aggressive sander that sands really fast for a lot of your blow and go type of stuff, and then you're going to want to have one that's a lot finer like this one is, or this one really fine for sanding your finish sanding, maybe finish sanding your Bondo. If you're doing DA color sanding, you definitely want a really fine sander for that, because you don't want those big giant swirls in your finish. So you want it to be a lot smaller because they're a little easier to polish out. So those are just a few things to look at when you're looking at sanders. And I'm not saying to buy any of these particular ones. It just depends on your budget. Not everybody's going to go out and buy a $300 sander. You might not benefit from it, but usually what I say is they have a decent one that's an 1/8 inch at Harbor Freight that lasted about a year. And I don't have it anymore, but what I did is I decided, this is the way I look at Harbor Freight stuff, is look, if I use it enough to wear it out and it didn't last me that long, then I'll really buy a good one the next time. And I've used it enough, and but if I use it and it gets stolen, then I didn't really lose anything, right? Because it's Harbor Freight, it's really cheap. And so I don't run out and buy a DeWalt or a high-end Hutchins the first time, because I want to see if I'm gonna like the type of sander, the type of sanding it does, or I'm gonna feel if I want to burn it up or whatever. Or if you need something temporary, you buy it at Harbor Freight. Those things are reasons you buy it usually, except for some of the Bauer and Hercules stuff. That stuff's actually pretty damn good. So, but just keep that in mind. If you're going cheap, you're gonna get a short-term sander. If you're going to spend more money, you're going to get a really expensive sander. You're pretty much going to have it forever or a long, long time, and then you're going to plan on, if the bearings go out or something like that on one of these, I'm going to rebuild it for sure, because it's worth doing, because it's expensive to replace, and the air usage is a big benefit. All right, so anyway, hope that helps you guys buy a sander and figure out how to look at them, how to know what to look for, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.